Welcome to Vartalapa or Conversation, a podcast born from countless conversations that had to become more than just passing thoughts. I'm Srividya Venkatasubramanya, founder and executive director of the Rave Cultural Foundation, where we bring the richness of traditional Indian performing arts to Northwest Arkansas. This limited podcast series delves into the values of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, transforming them from concepts into actions we live by. Through stories, shared experiences, and discussions with friends and experts from the community, we explore the intricate world of running an arts and culture based nonprofit. By presenting our worldview on various topics related to our mission and work, we hope to inspire you to learn more about us and join us in our mission to bring people together and make a difference in the world we live in. Our mission at Rave Cultural Foundation is to share and celebrate traditional Indian performing arts with the Northwest Arkansas community and beyond. Through real world experiences, inspiring performances, community showcases, classes, food, or jam sessions, the Rave Cultural Foundation sponsors events, provides education, and offers training in the arts and culture of India. I hope that Rave will leave its impact on our community by normalizing diversity. So, today we are going to talk to some of the younger generation here in Northwest Arkansas and welcome you all to Vartalapa, which just means conversation, because I don't know. You guys don't know that word either, do you?
No.
That's a Hindi word that means literally conversation, like, just speaking and, alap, right?
Well, like in music, yes.
Like in music, right?
Yeah.
It's an elaboration of notes.
Mm-hmm.
So Vartalapa is an elaboration of words.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is alap a Hindi word?
Yeah. So, okay. So we are going to talk to you guys. We are going to talk about, your experiences, right? And how that has helped. Frankly, your experiences helped me start Rave. Okay. But we'll talk about all that later. But let's start off by just introducing yourselves. Sinchana, Medhansh, Matangi. Do you want to start, Sinchana, and tell us more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm Sinchana. I'm a junior in high school right now, and I've been dancing for around 10 years now. I love dance, and honestly, I just love learning about our culture and, all that. And I kind of want to go into medicine right now, so.
Good luck. She's a very good Indian, right? She wants to be a doctor. Just like that. Who's that lady? The comedian lady? Who
Which one?
always...
Which one?
Like the one who always talks about, you being an Indian and you have to be like a doctor and...
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
She'll be very happy with you. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Medhansh.
My name is Medhansh. I'm a junior studying data science. I've been learning Indian classical violin for 12 going on 13 years and dance 9 going on 10 years now.
Awesome. And you are at the University of Arkansas, right?
Yeah.
And you are in which high school again?
Bentonville High School.
Bentonville High School, okay.
My name is Matangi Arun, and I am a junior at the University of Arkansas. I'm majoring in international business in economics, and I'm doing 2 minors, one in French and one in business analytics. And I've learned Indian Carnatic violin since I was 5 years old. So that's 16 years, and then I've learned dance, I think a year less than that. So 16 years, 15 years of Bharatanatyam, which is a classical South Indian dance style. And now I helped start up a competitive dance team at the University of Arkansas called Arkansas Atrangi. And so now that's a really big part of my life all through my college years. And it's kind of how I stay in touch with dancing in college.
That's great. That's really great. I mean, I don't think I would have thought about you doing that in college. You know, I would have never imagined that. You know? So I think Soumya and you, all of you have done an amazing job starting that.
Thank you.
That thing, yeah. It's. I mean, I didn't even know how big that was. Like that,
Yeah.
they, that almost every college in the US has a Desi dance club or something like that, and that it's competitive. That it's not just a hangout. So that's amazing. I mean. Wow, yeah. And of course, you're my daughter, right? I mean, for full disclosure, right? But yeah, you're not here because of that today. But I think you and Medhansh were perhaps one of the first group of kids. There were other kids also at that time when you were growing up. But I think you both were the first perhaps who really went... because a lot of children learn for a few years and then they stop for various reasons, fair enough. But I think you both were perhaps the first in Northwest Arkansas to, get to the level of an Arangetram, I think you had your dance Arangetram when you were in 7th grade?
It was summer of 8th grade going into 9th.
Right,
so that's summer before 9th grade.
Just before you hit high school, right? And... and then you also did yours a few years ago.
Mine was the summer after senior year, going into college. Yeah.
Right, and Arangetram is your first full-fledged solo performance for almost 90 minutes.
Yeah,
right?
It was a lot to train for. I can't believe I danced that much, actually.
So let's dig into that. And then you also recently this year for Yuva Utsav, both of you performed a little bit of your, not in Arangetram, but you did do, I think, 90-minute violin performance also, both of you this year. So let's start with that, and then we'll keep pulling Sinchana also into that because she's that. I think she's the next generation of what you guys went through. So it'd be. I would really love to hear how you guys managed it all. So let's start with. What was it like growing up here? Like, let's start just with that before we get into the art side of it.
Oh, without the arts.
Yeah, I mean,
just in general.
what does it mean, being brown, going to pre-K, going to kindergarten?
Well, I think a lot has changed now, but when I was in kindergarten, I think it was me and maybe like one other person. It was like a TV show with like very token diversity characters. But like, it was only one or two brown kids in the classroom. And you also like, not a lot of people were aware of different cultural things that Indians do or like just any other culture for that matter. Even if like, just anyone at the school. So it's just people weren't familiar with it. I don't think they knew a lot about it. And it seems like nowadays a lot more people know more just in general. So it's maybe more accepted just to be like you. But it was not like, I mean, you get a little insecure when you're younger if you're the only person who's different. So it was a little difficult growing up, but not to the point, not nothing crazy.
Sure.
It's just a feeling of exclusion sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I think the diversity of this region in particular, it's really exploded. But in the early 2010s, it was like kind of just starting out.
Yeah.
So growing up, it was like, like Matangi said, just us and like just a few other people of a different color. So, it was a little bit of feeling like an outsider at that point. But, as you grow up, I think like as more and more people came in, and, as people grow up as well, they learn about diversity as well. So it gets easier and easier.
Yeah, same here. Like when I first moved back from India, it was a little hard because I was like the only Indian girl in my class. So it was a little, if I'm going to be honest, it was a little embarrassing for me, because I was younger. But now that I've grown up, like a lot of, like you mentioned, like a lot more people have come in, and it's just a lot more inclusive. So I feel like proud.
I remember, I think it was in kindergarten or something, and I think you came home one day and you said, you had not eaten your lunch or something, and you were like, Mom, it was so stinky, like all my friends, because you all eat lunch together at school, right? And I think kids at the table kind of said, that your food was stinky. And this was, I think, kindergarten or something.
Yeah.
Right? And you were so upset and you were just like, and I told you, I said, it's okay, your food is just as stinky as, chicken nuggets or, something else. And, I think you felt a little better after that. But I think it's tiring for parents also, if we are the only ones explaining it, to you guys, and you hear it only from us. And then I think after a point, you just tune us out and you guys say, oh, Mom just always has an explanation for that, but you don't understand.
Well, what do you mean?
No, what I mean is, that I think, that culturally being together, in a larger community, like when you are in smaller groups, within in the Indian community or something like that, it's different. If you're just with a particular friend or something, it's different. Mm-hmm. But I think when you're in a school setting with more people and, going back to that, I just want to call out that feeling of embarrassment or that feeling of, oh, how can I look more like them? Or how can I, not highlight who I am, and own my identity and my culture and heritage, but rather try to appease the larger community. I'm trying to tease that out from you guys, about how did you guys traverse that? Like, how did you get through those things? Because we did see you all, when you started learning dance or violin or, whatever it was, we saw you not wanting to really tell your friends about it or, showcase in front of them or things like that. So
I think because it's just so common when you say you play violin, they assume you're playing Western, it's just a very different way of learning it, I guess. And it's just because it's different, you feel embarrassed whenever you're younger because you don't want to be different, really, you want to fit in. And so it's just slightly embarrassing. And on top of the cultural things, then you're also just regularly going through puberty. And just all the regular angst is also there mixed in with it. And even for Bharatanatyam, Indian culture is much more I don't know how to explain it. Whenever you see the fashion and the styles, it's a lot bolder with colors and with jewels and all these kinds of things. That's just how it is when you dress. So the costume for Bharatanatyam is very
over the top.
I don't think it's over the top.
No,
I used to think it was over the top, but yeah, it's just very grand. Yeah. And I mean, everyone else, if you do dance or you're doing ballet or something, it's a leotard. It's more simple, which is fine. It's just how. Mm-hmm. That's just their costume. But then I would just feel out of place because I had so much jewelry on and silk costume on, and I was like, whoa, I feel very different. But it was okay as I kept growing.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely when you start out, it's mostly it's two different worlds because when you're learning these classical arts, you're interacting with a set of people, and then when you go to school, you're interacting with a different set of people, and it's extremely unlikely that those two people, come into connection together. Now it's a little different because now we have such a huge cultural presence here with Rave that it's a little different now. But back then, I think it was just an awkward time explaining because, it's something that's so alien to a lot of other people, talking to your classmates, they've never heard of it. So you have to explain it from the grassroots up. It can get really confusing. And then, you're afraid that, oh, they might take this the wrong way. And then their idea of you might get warped into something that you don't want it to be. And that becomes an issue in and of itself. Mm-hmm. So that's also one kind of issue that I encountered, trying to keep those two things separate so that I would avoid that kind of conflict early in my life. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's all. This is exactly why I started Ravi. So I'm glad, that we're talking about it today, in a more public way, because I think oftentimes these conversations are not highlighted, and it's important to understand these conversations, and to understand the huge gaps in living together, right? When we say we're all together, I mean, everyone's nice, right? I mean, I don't think any of your friends, were like, oh, today I'm going to make sure Medhansh feels uncomfortable, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
it's not like that, right? All of us, everyone's very nice, but then there are these gaps, and then both sides, we don't know how to traverse it, how to bridge it, right? So what about you? Because I think when you started learning Bharatanatyam, and, when you started stepping out on, to perform or something, I don't think it was that bad. Like, it was a little better.
Yeah, I mean, I faced like similar things. Like, I don't know, like when I was in like the 6th grade, my mom like made me do like a Bharatanatyam performance for the talent show, the school talent show.
Every talent show.
And I was so embarrassed. Like, I was like, oh my God, what are people gonna think of me? Like, they're not gonna understand, and they're gonna think I'm weird. But like, honestly, it ended up going like really well, because like a lot of people watched it and they were like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, I didn't know like that even existed. Like, that's so amazing. It's so cool how you did that. And that's when I actually like started being more proud of it instead of being embarrassed. So
Wonderful. Yes. Yeah. I remember once you telling me, I think it was tough having me for a mom, right? Because I've signed you up for, I think, everything. You go do this. I think all of you understand that very well. We should do a mom's podcast, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But I remember you once telling me, I think it was some paper you had to submit in high school, if I'm not wrong, and I was like, why don't you talk about Indian music and this? And because it was music related, and I told you that, and you were like, no, Mom, I don't have to. Every time I do something, it doesn't have to be about India or Indian music or something. And I think that's true also, right? I think especially you all growing up here, I think you have straddled both cultures. And therefore, you can't just be about one thing, right?
There's like a weird subculture with all of us. Like, everybody, I don't know. There's definitely a culture. Like, if you met anybody else that has like the same crossover, you usually bond like very quickly in general, just because like, I don't know, you like the same things, like what music you listen to or things like that, it's like all part of like our culture. Like, you'll listen to a lot, like you'll have a lot of different playlists, like some for different genres in like Western music, I don't know, like hip hop or whatever. You have your playlist, and then you have like your Indian playlist, a Bollywood playlist, a classical playlist. I don't know, there's just a lot of different like things you just grab from both cultures.
Yeah, definitely. I have so many different. I have one for hip hop. I have one for Bollywood. I have one for Carnatic. I have one for dance as well. It's definitely, I agree. There's definitely like a certain subsect of like Indian Americans who grew up learning the classical arts, who like when they do that, they end up having a very, very similar experience, growing up in the same light. There's a violin camp in Dallas that we attend, me and Matangi, and there we get to practice and play with our great teacher, Ritul Ramurthy sir. He brings in all of his students from that area.
Yeah, and that's a huge group. That's like almost like 30 plus kids, all in one room, sitting and practicing.
Oh, it's such a great community. Yeah. It's always really fun to go. But we literally you just play violin all day. You have lessons. You practice basics, all these things from like, I don't know, we start like 8.
Yeah.
8, 9, and then we'll go till like 5 p.m. Probably.
Probably because...
Or sometimes it's later. It just depends. But it's fun. It's not like we're forced.
Yeah, I can't force you guys on that.
Maybe some of the little kids. I mean, the little kids aren't there as long. But I think when we were all little, it took a lot of pushing to make us practice.
I mean, that's true of anything, right? I mean, you talk to anybody. If any parent, if you talk to them, and if there are, we see you have certain talents. I mean, you used to. I think when you were as young as 2 years old, you would sing, and you would catch notes, you would catch rhythm, very well. You had that small tiny piano that you would just with listening, to a tune you would play, things like that. So you notice these things, as a parent, and then you want, obviously, you want to develop that talent because it is God given. I mean, it's natural. I mean, there's nobody. I mean, you have it. It's obvious. So we want to, and then that takes nurturing talent is a long-term game, right? It takes a lot. It's not at all easy, I can speak to us especially, and I mean, I know you will also hear the same themes, learning to, because you loved gymnastics, you did swimming, you did taekwondo, you did, what else did you do? Oh my gosh, I'm beginning to forget
ice
now.
Skating.
Oh yeah, it started with ice skating at age 3, I think.
Yeah. I've done a lot of things.
Roller skating and
I like gymnastics. Shoulders are still strong.
So and then and then of course Kumon, the academic side of things also had you had to keep up, and I think at some point of time, I think it was around 4th grade, 5th grade, I started cutting. I was like, okay, you need to start taking something off your plate, because everything required that much more practice and that much more
time.
Yes. And also the thought process, you have to start thinking about what you have to practice, and you have to get a little more into the details of it and everything. You can't just do whatever your teacher told you or something, you also have to process more by yourselves. So what were the biggest challenges, other than having your moms yell at you guys and, go do this, you have to do this and all that. What more? Can you talk a little bit about the actual problems at home? Like you talked about school and, what outside, how you were perceived and things. What was going on at home? Choose your words wisely, right?
For me, it was a lot about being told to do things that I felt like I wasn't interested in. Like, to start off, I felt I wasn't really interested in dance much. I was like, oh, this is so lame. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do these cool things like gymnastics and all. But then, my mom kept pushing me, which I'm glad she did, because I'm really glad that I do dance today. I love it a lot.
And when you mean dance, just, for the purpose of the podcast, you're talking about Bharatanatyam dance, particularly.
Bharatanatyam and Bollywood as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think a big part of why we feel like that is because, maybe if we were learning in India, it would be different, because there's established schools, and, those schools have reputations, and there are competitions, and there's, just a whole community that you can see, so you don't feel like you're the only one, and that you don't have a community to lie back on. But here, gymnastics has that. Every single established art form has that. You'll see girls going to competitions, and there's cheer competitions. You go to gymnastics meets, all these kinds of things. But for dance, it's a lot better now, because Rave gives so many opportunities to perform. But it was weird. I didn't want to perform places. There wasn't oh, yeah, this is this school. Oh, yeah, they train really good dancers. Oh, this is an established blah, blah, blah. Oh, here's a competition. Now there are many more competitions, but you still have to drive quite a way to go. And I think it's still being developed, the whole process. But I think that was the main reason why we felt like we didn't want to do it when we were younger.
But what about, what were the tensions at home? What was...
I wouldn't want to practice, and that's just a normal thing. Or I would practice so much I would just get so frustrated and then but like because I couldn't get it perfectly, and then I would get so obsessed with trying to get it perfectly, and then I'd get so angry. So there's a little, I think that's just regular practicing turmoil.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about especially your experience of training for your Arangetram? Because it was more than just practice, right? It was about stories that you were telling, and
that's actually a good point to hit on, because along with feeling like Bharatanatyam wasn't as established, you also feel like for some reason you get the weird feeling people think it doesn't take as much effort and that it just doesn't take as much work, which let's talk about Arangetram. So I would go to like 6 a.m. practice, and I think around 6 to 8 would be me learning new choreography. So all of it was new choreography that my teacher choreographed and taught to me. And so I danced 6 to 8, and then 8 to 9 was the senior class, and then 9 to 10, intermediate, and then I would just go through. So it goes intermediate, and then there's an advanced like beginners class, and then the beginners like really little kids. So you end up doing everything from all the old pieces that you've learned, all the intermediate pieces you've learned, and then the basic exercises you learn when you first start. So I would be at dance class from about 6 a.m. to like noon. I'd be there for 6 hours every Saturday, and then on Wednesdays I'd be there for probably, it would be like 3 until 8. There'd be 5-hour increments, and then every day you have to practice what you learned, because otherwise there's no way you're gonna have stamina to do it. There's just, it's the same how I see any other dancer training. Mm-hmm. You have to train your body, you have to be disciplined, you have to dance every day, you have to condition, you have to run, like all these things are just dance, and it takes a lot of effort.
You have to be prepared to tell the stories as well. There's a lot of storytelling involved in Bharatanatyam. It's not just pure dance for the sake of dance. There's stories, thousands of years old stories that have been passed down through oral tradition, and then now through song, and then now it comes upon you. The responsibility is on you to bring that story to life through your dance, for that song, for the audience, for yourself. It takes a lot of looking inwards, to find how you want to express that story and what is actually the best way to do that. I remember, so we call it Sanchari, which is like the section in your dance where you devote it specifically to story. It's not as energetic. It's more focused on, using your hands, using your eyes, your face, your body to tell the story.
Almost like acting.
Yeah, without words.
Right.
Based only on the the emotion of the music and your own emotions. And there are multiple different complex stories, multiple characters, different emotions. It could be like devotion for a god. You could be showing love. You could be showing hate. You could be showing jealousy, anger. All of these different emotions, which you have to combine into a single, 3 to 5 minute piece, and you have to tell that complete story in a way which you think is best, in a way that both you can understand for yourself and one that your audience can understand, it's always a dilemma that, it takes a lot of thought to go through as well. So it's not, I don't say it's just a physical endeavor going through an Arangetram practice, going through Bharatanatyam recital. It's definitely also a strain on your mental as well.
Yes, learning how to get into characters' heads, especially when you're first starting out, is very emotionally difficult, because you have to learn how to think, not how you would react to the situation, but you have to learn how to be extremely empathetic and think about how other people would react. Like, you need to become a different person mentally, which can get a little weird. When you're younger, it feels weird sometimes.
And also with characters and stories that you may have heard your grandparents or parents tell you, but that you in your own personal spaces haven't really read or worked on, because like story of Rama or Krishna. I mean, you all know the basic story of Rama or Krishna, but you've never really read the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, or like the way you've read Harry Potter or what is that other one? The
Percy Jackson.
Yeah, right. Right? Like you've all grown up on those books, but you haven't read. Yes, all of you, I think you've also read Amar Chitrakathas and all when you were young. Did you read those?
I think so.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
all of you go through that phase, but that's not what you repeatedly read the way you read, I want to put in quotes, Western young youth literature, right? So that also is a big challenge to...
It's a challenge because, I mean, maybe it's kind of like I know friends that go to Bible study and things like that. And obviously, as you get older, you mature and you enjoy to read those things. But when you're younger, they're like, oh, I don't want to read it. I don't want to read the Bible. Like, oh, I don't want to go to Bible study. I don't want to do this. And that's just, I think, the same kind of feeling. Because it's just written not in an adventure fighting. Like, I mean, it is adventure and fighting. You do get to that. But it's just like, you feel different because it's a religious text, which is something that, like, I don't know, when you're younger, that's just the mental block you have.
Yeah, it's what your grandparents and all the old fuddy-duddies do and not what young people do. Yeah, yes. So so let's talk a little bit more about how Rave has helped out in all these things, right? What are your personal experiences about Rave, and how has Rave made a change in all this?
Yeah, definitely, because obviously there's so many more opportunities, not just for me to perform, but to watch other people perform, not only Bharatanatyam, but like violin, singing, all that. I've just gotten more of an exposure to my culture, tradition, and all. And I feel like that's really developed my love for our culture, which I didn't have before, because like growing up here, you don't get that exposure that you would like if you grew up in India. So I feel like Rave has definitely helped a lot with that. And yeah.
Good. Thank you.
I think especially the cultural showcases that they do biannually, the Saptaswara and the Natyam showcases, I think those really help out, mostly because it's an opportunity for young dancers and young violinists or young musicians to showcase their art in a more art-focused space. Because before any of this happened, the most that we'd have, right, is performing at the temple, while, people are talking all around you. There's like prayer going on in the background. Everyone's just walking around. It's not really a focus on the art that's being showed, or talent show, which is, focus on the art, but also it's not entirely as professional of
it's a 5-minute, right? Yeah, it's just 5 minutes. Okay, it's your turn.
Yeah, and then afterwards, you can have like a different type of art. So it's not really focused on one genre. It's not as streamlined as these showcases have been. And I think giving the opportunity for people in this area to showcase their talents and their art in an environment which is more welcoming, it allows them to, more thrive and flourish in that environment.
Right. Yeah. But actually, when we formulated Natyam and Saptaswara, those two events especially, we specifically put in the condition that you could apply for a 10-minute slot up to a 40-minute slot, because I think everywhere, otherwise you are performing for 5 minutes or maximum 10 minutes, any other community event or anywhere, like pretty much. So that was a very conscious effort that we made through Natyam and Saptaswara to give all of you those opportunities, because there are kids, there are adults, who are learning, and they can perhaps sing only for 5 minutes, and there are people who are so good. I mean, I don't know if you all remember when Priya auntie had done that whole thing about the Tirupavai, right? The Tirupavai, she had done this beautiful story with the songs, and that was, I think, if I remember, a full 30 to 40 minute performance. And even today we all remember it. It was just so beautiful, and that requires that time. So thanks, thank you. Yeah, that's good. It
also gives you something to practice towards. Like, the reason why you go and have performances, go to competitions, all these things, is that you have something to practice towards. Otherwise, it feels so aimless. You're like, okay, I'm doing this over and over again, but where's it going? And performing obviously gives you experience on stage, and it just gives you something. Oh, let me try dancing these 3 pieces. Let's see how I do on stage. All these just keeps it exciting through the year.
Yeah.
And I think the most important part about Rave's, like everything Rave does, is the performances of more professional artists that they fly in from India or just anywhere around the world. And they're like extremely good artists in their field, like top of their field, and you get the opportunity to go and watch. Because otherwise, you don't know, like, you won't know just general etiquette of going to an Indian show. I mean, like an Indian classical, Indian, like, music or dance. Like, for dance, it's like common, you know, there's always like common points where everybody knows intuitively they're supposed to clap, whether or not the performance was good. Like, that's just where you clap, right? So, like, for Bharatanatyam, usually after a really big jati, you'll clap. And that, if people don't know that, sometimes it's really awkward. If you go and people don't know that and no one's clapping as if they don't want to interrupt the performance, and you're like, oh. I mean, of course, there are dancers who you clap anyways because they're just so good. But things, etiquette and things like that, just understanding how the flow of the performance works, because it is its own flow. It has its own flow, especially Carnatic music has like a very specific sequence of how you carry out a concert and things like that. And you just get to see people performing that are so much better than you, and it motivates you to do better, because you see them and you're like, how do they even move that fast? How do they even play that fast? That's crazy. And you're like, somebody's actually really doing that, and you get to see it. Because otherwise, I mean, when we were younger, there weren't many people that would perform there were a few, but it wasn't a lot. So we didn't have much exposure to seeing.
I mean, we never had full-length performances in the area till we started. I think the first one was, I mean, in 2018, we had Vittal sir and
Yes.
VVS Murari sir and all of them. They did.
That was beautiful.
I think that was pretty much.
I think that was the first full length, right?
Full Carnatic
Yes.
performance in Bentonville, I think. I mean, ever. Yeah, because I think we had some performances before, but they were not fully classical. So I think that was our first full-length classical.
I think more people needed to see that.
And a lot of people enjoyed it. I mean, we've always had very good reviews about all our events. And when Megha performed her first, under the professional series, that was the very first time she had given a full-length performance in the US.
Wow.
Yeah, because till then she had only done the 5-minute.
That was after a long time.
Yes, and she was somebody who had been giving regular full-length performances in India.
Yes.
So when she moved here, because we started the professional concert series very much for people like her, and I hope people like you all now, because you're all getting to that point to give your own performances. But yeah, I remember her saying that was the first ever full-length performance she had ever given. So to provide that space, to create that platform is just so important, for all the reasons that you've all mentioned. So yeah, and I think the support system also to get to all these places, right? I mean, we've carpooled for workshops.
Yes.
We have, right? I mean, so many parents have dropped you all off, and someone else has taken care while, an event was going on or a performance was going on. And it takes a community, it takes a village to do all this, So I think, I think Rave, good. I think we're on the right track. So I hope you will all continue to give us feedback and, keep guiding us in the right direction so that we continue to be relevant to all of you and the next set of younger people coming on and with their own challenges, and I hope we don't take this for granted.
Yes, yeah.
Right? Yeah. Thank you all. I think that brings this Vartalapa conversation to an end. You learned a new word today. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you coming from college, from high school. It's a weekday, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Vartalapa. Thank you for joining us as we explored the world of nonprofits and the values that drive us. A huge thanks to our guests for their insights and stories. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. Let's keep these important conversations alive and thriving. You can find our podcast of Vartalapa or Conversation on Spotify and our YouTube channel. Be sure to tune in, stay curious, stay connected, and join us next time on Vartalapa. Until then, keep making a difference in your world.